Not to worry, I told my Facebook friends that this was going to be a lengthy chit-chat, unscripted, off the cuff. And the reason why it's going to be a lengthy chit-chat is because I just feel like venting. I don't do that very often, but I feel like venting today. As you know, I do have cancer, and part of the problem with having cancer is that you're in constant pain. Well, there are medications that I take. One of them is something called Narco. It is like a super hyper Tylenol. Well, I did request it from one doctor, but my pain management has been transferred to another doctor, and when you call the number, you're requested to go to extension 4, and when you go to extension 4, you can hardly hear what they're talking about. But you sort of discern that what they want to do is to verify that you are who you are. Well, I do that. I make my request for the refill, and then there is silence. No feedback, nothing. In the meantime, I am in pain, and I'm taking Tylenol because you have to do something. But let me tell you what it is all about. If you've never had cancer, here's the problem. The problem is that cancer is a horrible, horrible thing. It is when your cells go out of control, it takes over your body, it destroys you. Well, as it turns out, right now we have evolved where we now have really great doctors, well-trained medical doctors. We have medical equipment that can detect cancer early. We have everything. We have evolved as a people. We have. So I appreciate my medical doctors. I really do. You know, Dr. Wooten, Dr. Javier, Dr. Shu. Dr. Shu, by the way, is a neurosurgeon. So he's not only a medical doctor and a surgeon, he's also a PhD. Dr. NJ, and I know what you're thinking. You're thinking that, these are professional people, and they're simply doing what they need to do. But I got to tell you something. There's a way to do something, and there's a way not to do something, okay? I had a medical doctor who very rarely ever looked at me. He would look at the chart, ask the so-called cookie-cutter questions, and then he would leave. The nurse would then come in and explain what he did. Needless to say, I request to have another doctor. Now, he's in it for the money, okay? Not all doctors are in it for the money. I can tell you that. Not all of them. I had a cousin, Dr. Peter Townsend. Peter was my heart. I love Peter to death. As a matter of fact, I think I was the last relative to see Peter before he died. Peter did not go into medicine for the money. I can tell you that with 100% certainty. Dr. Peter Townsend, practiced medicine in the inner city of Baltimore. I miss Peter, and yes, I talk to Peter every once in a while. I'm one of those guys who believe in ancestral worship, but that's another video. And also, I didn't mention Dr. Malcolm. I really like Dr. Malcolm a lot. Dr. Malcolm is not only personable, he's funny, he's got a sense of humor, and he listens to what you say. He really listens. He's like Dr. Shu, the neurosurgeon. I mentioned to Dr. Shu that I was a photographer, and the subsequent times that I would go and visit him, he would also mention me and my photography. Isn't that something? Dr. NJ does the same thing. But anyway, I just want to tell you that having cancer is no fun. So, there is no cure, but there is maintenance. And I am so very grateful for every single day that I'm alive. You've got to understand the consequences. In addition to having cancer, I had a urinary problem where I had to go to the bathroom constantly, and I did not always have control. In addition to that, I had the most severe case of colitis. I think it's called collective colitis or something like that. I don't remember the name of the thing. But in other words, I was living in diapers because it was uncontrollable. Excuse me. I'm a human being. I cough. But anyway, thanks to Dr. Wooten, I think I'm better, a lot better now. I have control of both. I have control of both number one and number two. But here's what I wanted to say. During my time, and you got to remember this now, right? There is cancer, there is colitis, there is this business about having to use the bathroom all the time. I was living in a diaper. I had a brace on my head. I couldn't move. And of course, a lot of people went, we don't need that. But not everyone felt that way. My wife, Linda, remember, I don't have a place to stay. I am homeless because in addition to getting cancer, I was evicted from the house that I was renting because the people wanted to sell the property. So I became homeless. Linda took me in her place. Remember, Linda and I, now she is now Linda Saunders Clark, as you know. She's not my wife. I am married. But I've known Linda for about 10 years. And she has been the exact same way from day one until now. She's incredible. But during this time, I was sleeping almost horizontally. I had to wear a diaper because I could never make to the bathroom, and cancer was ravishing my body. Okay? Linda took me into her house without complaint. And while I was there, I had certain people, now I'm going to be mentioning names off the top of my head, so forgive me if I have forgotten anyone. But my sisters were there, all of my sisters. Now, they lived some 600, 700 miles away, but they never failed to find out how I was doing. Not a single one of them ever sent me that ridiculous phrase, I am sending you thoughts and prayers. I hate that phrase with a passion. When you say, I'm sending you thoughts and prayers, I don't mind the thoughts. As a matter of fact, I appreciate the thoughts. When you say you're sending me prayers, what does that mean? I'm going to get into that in just a minute. I like when people say, Dave, I'm thinking about you. You know why? Because they don't really know what to say. Nobody does. But they are thinking about me, meaning that they are visualizing me being well. Isn't that wonderful? So, Cousin Crystal was there for me. All my sisters were there for me. All of my children were there for me. They didn't have to do that, you know. They all have lives that they have to live. My friend Melanie, bless her heart, Melanie offered me the first floor of her mansion. And yeah, to me it's a mansion, a house that you have where you have an elevator from the first floor to the third floor. She offered me the first floor of her mansion. But it was not a practical solution because she had a business to run. So I would be there all the time by myself, and that was impractical. But I cannot tell you, I cannot express to you, I cannot really convey to you the gratitude that I felt that she would do that. She did. And then, oh yeah, my ex-wife Annette, oh bless her heart, she's one of those souls that came to earth to be an angel. Annette is a registered nurse, and she had to be, because she's so compassionate, she's so loving. All the time that I was on my back, Annette cared. Now you could say, well, she's a nurse, it's her job to care for patients. No, she cared about me, Dave Clark. All these above people that I mentioned, they cared. They cared. I think Linda and Annette ought to become very good friends. Of course, they're in different worlds, but that would be nice. Anyway, if I didn't mention your name, forgive me. I know in my heart who you are, and I know that you cared. Now, let's talk about what am I going to do with this day, this time that I've been given. Well, as you know, I have a Facebook page, The Thoughts of Microdac, and I try every day to express myself, to share photographs, and to share videos. I do that knowing that very few people ever watch. They don't, really. And not because, and here's the thing, this is what I understand. Forgive the noise of the chair. This is what I understand clearly. It is not that they don't care what I have to say. It is just that they have a very busy life. So they will look at the Facebook page and they will look at my picture and say, okay, Dave is fine. And they go on about their life, which to me is perfectly acceptable. So on my Facebook page, I share things. I share things on my Facebook page. Now, I am about to write some short stories. Would you like to hear one of them? Okay, I'm going to tell you anyway, because this video is so long, I doubt if anybody is ever going to watch this video. But here's one of the short stories. I got to get my short story voice on. Excuse me. So, Bentley lives in London. Bentley is the product of his Jamaican parents, and I think perhaps he was called Bentley for their aspirations. Bentley the car. But Bentley lived in London. Bentley then got word that his grandmother in Jamaica had died. And to Bentley says, wow, I imagine that all my relatives are going to be there for the funeral. The relatives from Panama, the relatives from the United Kingdom, from Canada, United States. So why not kill two birds with one stone and also make it a reunion? Now that to me was very good thinking. So Bentley, right after work, he stuffed a few clothing in a travel bag, and he also put a book in his travel bag, and right after work that Thursday, he made a beeline to Heathrow Airport, just barely caught his plane to fly over to Jamaica. Now that's a long flight, a very long flight. But the book that he brought with him to read was a book called Kinship with All Life. Now this book was written a long, long time ago. Kinship with All Life is a book about a relationship between a man and his dog. And through the relationship between a man and his dog, the man learned to communicate with animals. The dog then became a Hollywood movie star. That's right. He was a movie star back in the 30s and 40s. The dog, that is, not the author. So, he grabbed the book, Kinship with All Life, and on the flight to Kingston, he read the book. And because it was a very short book, he read it again. A long flight, you have the time. Then he fell asleep. He landed in Kingston in the hours way late at night, early mornings, and he was picked up and brought up into the hills where his grandmother lived. Now, Friday morning, that Friday, Bentley had a chance to meet his Jamaican cousins, and he understood why his parents talked the way they did. He understood why his parents acted the way they did. He understood the nuances of being a Jamaican. He understood why his parents were so proud, why they worked so hard to make sure that Bentley had the highest education possible. So, in talking with his parents that Friday, he got to know a lot of his cousins from Canada, United States, Panama, everywhere. He got to know them well. Now, the funeral was going to be that Sunday. On Saturday, Bentley visited his grandmother's home. It was a very modest home. It was a home filled with love. In the home, there were pictures of all of her grandchildren from all over the world. And yes, Bentley saw his picture in his grandmother's house, and he was moved, even though he has never met his grandmother. Outside his little house, there was a goat, and Bentley walked up to the goat, and the goat walked up to Bentley. It was like a mutual love affair. Bentley sat on the grass, and he would pet the goat, and the goat with her big brown eyes would look at Bentley, and there was a connection. Bentley knew how to communicate with the goat. And the secret of communicating with animals don't understand words. They understand emotion, and they understand pictures. So you've got to create a picture in your mind, attach a feelings and an emotion, and the goat will understand that. That's one of the reasons why if you approach an animal with fear, you're going to get attacked, because when you're fearful, you're liable to do anything. Anyway, you got to read that book, Kinship with All Life. So Bentley sat on the grass, he petted the goats, and he was in love with the goat. He even entertained the idea, gee, I wonder what it would be like if I could just bring the goat back to England. Well, that was not practical. So Bentley continued his visit at his grandmother's house, where other cousins had gathered, other relatives, and he visited with them to learn everything he could about Jamaica. He only had a weekend to do so. That Sunday was the funeral, and Bentley learned how people in Jamaica buried their loved ones. They would build what would seem like a little house. It was a vault made out of concrete above the ground. And then the casket would be placed inside the vault, and that very day, as a matter of fact, right after the casket goes in the vault, it would be sealed. The masons would seal the vault. In the meantime, at the gravesite, people would be singing all kind of songs, religious songs. You got to remember, I don't think there's a country on earth more religious than Jamaica. So they would be singing, Over the River and Someday Soon and all those religious songs they'd be singing, okay? So Bentley took note, and he thought, wow, that's a very practical thing. She was buried right on her own property in a vault. Right after the funeral, of course, everybody would gather in chairs outside the house. There was never any room in the house, so people would bring a chair, or they would sit on a log. So they would sit wherever they can, and they would have this beautiful dinner, which was usually consisted of Jamaican foods, rice and peas, a sort of meat, chocho, yam, dumpling, cocoa, typical Jamaican food. So Bentley waited his turn. He went through the line. He got his dish, and he saw a space next to a cousin that he had met that Friday. So he sat next to the cousin, shared greetings, enjoying their meal, and on a whim, Bentley asked his cousin, on Saturday when I got here, there was a goat outside. What was the name of that goat? His cousin says, well, in Jamaica, we don't really give names to goats. He says, really? He says, no. He thought. Well, what do you suppose happened to that goat? Because I didn't see him today. He said, you're eating it. There was this long pause, and that was the day Bentley became a vegetarian. The end. What do you think of that short story, huh? Okay, never mind. Let's move on. One of the things that I did was to become a minister. Now, the term is really meaningless to me. It has no real meaning. But for some reason, when you put Reverend Dave Clark, people go, I ought to listen. The term has no meaning. But anyway, I am Reverend Dave Clark. My religion is Microdacism, which is not a religion. Confusing, isn't it? But here's the thing. Like most people, I grew up in the Judeo-Christian tradition. I actually believed that the Bible was the Holy Bible. I did. I believed every single word because it says you shouldn't change any word in the Bible. So I believed it all. I believed it all. Until I started to think for myself, and everything changed. It just did not make any sense. Okay? So, what I discovered that certain gospels were left out of the Bible because had they included these gospels, religion would never have the control on people as it does. One of the gospels that was left out of the Bible is the Gospel of Mary. Now, in the Gospel of Mary, Jesus tells Mary, look, there is no such thing as sin. You know, what people ought to be concerned with is their own behavior. Now, can you imagine telling your congregant that there is no such thing as sin? If you did, where's the fear? Where's the hate? What group are you going to hate? Because they're sinful and they are disgusting and they should be eliminated. See, that was in the Gospel of Mary. And then there's the Gospel of James, the Gospel of Thomas. Oh my God. The Gospel of Thomas absolutely could not have gone in the Bible, because in the Gospel of Thomas, Jesus tells Thomas, and this is profound, Jesus tells Thomas, know yourself and you will know the secrets of the universe. In the Gospel of Thomas, Jesus talks about creation. Creation. That's the Gospel of Thomas. And then he goes on to explain why he's on earth, what his mission is, why he's a messenger. He never said ever in any of the Gospels, not included in the Bible, he never said, I am God, you should worship me. Never happened. So there's the Gospel of Mary, the Gospel of James, the Gospel... Oh, by the way, speaking about the Gospel of James, one of his disciples asked Jesus, so, when you leave, who are we supposed to listen to? He said, go to James. Listen to James. Well, you can't put that in the Bible because the entire church is based on Peter. You see why certain Gospels couldn't be put in there? And then there's the Gospel of Judas. That is the most enlightening, the most profound Gospel you will ever read. Because that's when Jesus embraced Judas as his very close confidant. And he explained to him who the star people are, the extraterrestrials, the ones who come from the sky, the one who come down from heaven. He explained to Judas who these people are. And he also explained to Judas why he had to be the one. But I won't get into that. I will tell you this. If you really give a damn, you would read the Gospels that were not in the Bible. As for the Bible, it has been embellished. It shouldn't have been, but it has. The Bible was put together by a guy by the name of St. Jerome. Christianity was invented by Constantine, an emperor of Rome. And then there's a king in England, King James, who decided he wanted his own Bible, so he put together the King James Version. All the time these scribes were adding and subtracting. They were also making up nonsense and adding to the Bible. So I wanted you to tell you that. So here's what I did. When I created Microdacism, this is what Microdacism is based on. Number one, Microdacism tells you to think for yourself. You are the one who has the knowledge, acquires the knowledge. You are the one with the experiences. You are the one with your personal intuition. You are the one who have gleaned wisdom from all the gurus, from Confucius to Socrates, Aristotle, Moji. Moji is a Jamaican guru who is extremely smart. I listen to Moji a lot. And there are also current people you ought to listen to. John Lennon, when he wrote Imagine, what a fantastic sermon. Bob Dylan and his many works, right? And then Bob Marley. Bob Marley, every country you go in the world, every single country embraces Bob Marley's mantra, one love. One love. One love. You can't have that in religion, you know what I mean? Religion, you can't have all the people embracing each other in the oneness of love. Doesn't work. Because there's no fear and there's no hate. See what I mean? So there's Microdacism. Microdacism then suggests strongly that you evolve. And I'm going to repeat myself here because it's important. I was born in the Judeo-Christian tradition, but I evolved out of there from religion into spirituality. Look, you cannot stay 7 or 8 years old forever. In spite of the effort that you manufacture and how comfortable it is to be 8 years old, you will evolve. And you begin to learn that there's no Santa Claus. There's no Easter Bunny. There are no fairy tales. Fairy tales are tales of morality. And you evolve. So that's what happens to religion. You evolve out of religion. You become a human being, and you know for a fact that the only thing you need to do is to be the best human being that you can be. You don't need religion. And you also found out that in religion, the gods that they worshiped were the extraterrestrials that came down from heaven, meaning the sky. Well, you learn now that there's a thing called the universe. And you learn that there's a thing called creation. Some people say it's the Big Bang. Fine. I don't know enough about it to offer an argument. What I do know, and I emphasize in Microdacism, is that I personally feel, this is based on belief, I feel there's a connection between me and creation. There's a connection between me and creation, and I don't need extraterrestrials as gods. I don't need God. I don't need the gods as created by mankind, because there is a connection between me and correction and creation. And the other thing I learned that was equally important, the God that I seek is within me. I am the God that I seek, and I am divine. So my divinity, through connection, connects to creation. And when I believe in the process, I have results. For the longest time, I didn't understand why there were miracles in every single religion since time began, since man began to understand that he was a spiritual being on the earth. And the reason why there were miracles is because even though they could not have verbalized it, as a matter of fact, they never did verbalize it, they knew about their own divinity. They knew about the connection with creation. And the Bible in all of this is called, you ready for this? Nature. Nature then became my Bible. If I want to learn about karma, I learned it from nature. If I want to learn about my eternal life, I learned it from nature. If I want to learn about reincarnation, I learn it from nature. Right about now you're saying, what the hell are you talking about? Let's talk about eternal life for a minute. Take a simple thing like a corn, an ear of corn. From that ear of corn, you have one little corn. You plant that corn in the ground. That corn will grow up to be a corn, the vegetable. You pick the corn, you take a corn, and you separate it into 100 little corn things, beans or whatever, and you plant them. That original corn now is going to go on in forever. And that is what happens. Here is our responsibility. Our responsibility is to be the best human being in the world. Do you know what happened to an ear of corn that didn't make it? It's thrown away. That's right. It is not good. It is thrown away. The same thing happened to you. You have the responsibility of being the best human being that you can be. But that's a choice. There is no judgmental thing attached to that. You simply choose to be horrible. And you know what happened to you? You're thrown away. That's my theory. And I believe it. The other thing is karma. Do you know that if you go into nature and you break off a limb, you can't just stick this limb back together. You can't just go to the ground and say, oh, I am so sorry, I broke the limb. The limb is forever broken, and the karma is the result of your action. There is nothing you can do about it. There is a thing called gravity. And whether you believe in gravity or not, totally irrelevant. Totally irrelevant. You jump off a roof, you're going to get hurt because of gravity. No, nothing personal, there's nothing judgmental. It's called gravity. Karma is the same way. Whether you believe in karma or not, you will pay for your misbehavior. You will pay for it. So, what are we supposed to do on earth? Your job to be on earth is twofold. Twofold. And every philosopher tells you that. Be the best human being that you can be and choose to be happy. That's it. Oh my God, I still have lots more to tell you, but I can't. This is pretty long, and I'll bet you $5. I don't have $5, I have $2. But I'll bet you no one ever watches this video, and that's okay. You know why? Because in making this video, I diverted my painful body into making the video. Did you know that all the time that I was talking about this video, I never felt pain, not once, because of my mind. I diverted my attention to making this video, so I felt no pain. That's one of the reasons why I do the things that I do. Because while I'm doing them, I feel no pain. It's one of the little secrets that you learn when you read books. Maxwell Maltz's book, Cybernetics. You ought to read it. Aliens in the Bible. That's another book that you should read to understand the God that you're worshiping are aliens. And the stack of books to read is that high. Kinship with All Life. Read it. Anyway, this has gotten way long. All I can say to you is, whether I know you or not, I love you more than I can ever say, because we are one.